At the dawn of the 20th century, the world operated under a simple, widely accepted rule. Power belonged to Europe. Great empires like Russia, Britain, and France were the masters of global politics. They drew lines on maps, dictated trade, and decided the fate of millions. In this world order, Asian nations were viewed as weak, divided, and stuck in the past. They were seen as subjects to be ruled, not as equals to be reckoned with. The idea that an Asian nation could challenge a great European power was not just unlikely, it was considered impossible. Then, in 1904, the impossible happened. War erupted between two nations at opposite ends of the world's perception. On one side, the colossal Russian Empire, a behemoth stretching across two continents, with a massive army and a history of European military dominance. On the other, the Empire of Japan, a nation that just 50 years earlier had been an isolated feudal society forced open by Western gunboats. To onlookers, this was a mismatch of epic proportions. A David versus Goliath story, except everyone expected Goliath to win without breaking a sweat. But this conflict would prove that the future doesn't always belong to the biggest empire. It belongs to the one that adapts, prepares, and seizes its moment. While Russia was plagued by arrogance, internal turmoil, and an outdated military strategy, Japan had undergone a breathtaking transformation. The Meiji Restoration had turned it into a modern, industrialized nation with a highly disciplined, well-equipped military burning with nationalistic pride. Japan saw Russia's expansion into Manchuria and Korea as a direct threat to its own survival and ambitions. They weren't just fighting for territory, they were fighting for their place in the modern world. The war began with a shocking act of audacity. On February 8, 1904, without a formal declaration of war, the Japanese Imperial Navy launched a surprise attack on the Russian fleet at Port Arthur, a strategic naval base in Manchuria. This preemptive strike crippled Russia's Pacific Fleet and set the tone for the entire conflict. It was a brutal, effective move that demonstrated Japan's modern naval strategy and its willingness to take immense risks. While the world reeled in shock, Japan followed up with a series of decisive victories on land and at sea. The land battles in Manchuria were grueling and bloody, showcasing the brutal nature of modern warfare with trenches, machine guns, and heavy artillery. A grim preview of what was to come in World War I a decade later. Japanese forces, despite being outnumbered in some engagements, consistently outmaneuvered and defeated the poorly led and supplied Russian armies. The siege of Port Arthur became a symbol of Japanese determination. A brutal 11-month struggle that cost tens of thousands of lives, but ultimately ended in a Japanese victory. But the final, fatal blow to Russian pride came at sea. In a desperate attempt to regain control, Russia dispatched its Baltic fleet on an incredible 7-month, 18,000-mile journey around the world to confront the Japanese Navy. The two fleets finally met at the Battle of Tsushima in May 1905. The result was one of the most decisive naval victories in history. In less than 24 hours, the Japanese fleet, under the brilliant command of Admiral Togo Heihachiro, virtually annihilated the Russian armada. It was a humiliation of unimaginable scale. The defeat sent shockwaves across the globe. For the first time in the modern era, a non-European nation had defeated a major European power in a full-scale war. The myth of European invincibility was shattered forever. In Russia, the catastrophic loss fueled widespread discontent, leading directly to the 1905 revolution and planting the seeds for the eventual collapse of the Tsarist regime. Across Asia and the colonized world, Japan's victory was a powerful inspiration. It proved that resistance to Western dominance was possible and ignited nationalist movements from India to Vietnam. Japan had not just won a war, it had redrawn the mental map of the world. This single conflict marked the decline of one empire, the dramatic rise of another, and forever altered the global balance of power. It was a turning point that set the stage for the turbulent history of the 20th century. Thank you for watching. If you found this piece of history fascinating, be sure to like and subscribe for more stories that changed our world.